We get things wrong quite often. And in today's episode, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about things that we used to believe and things that we used to do from a training and nutrition perspective that we now don't believe in, or we do very differently to how we did them before. But before we jump into the episode, I just want to welcome my wonderful co-host Ben with his lovely flowing locks. Look at them. They're
Oh,
coming
thank
on
you.
nicely,
Thank
mate.
you. Thank you. It's getting there.
How are
I
you
went through
today, mate?
a lot of awkward stages, so thank you. I'm good. I'm good despite the weather now being slightly more Northern Irish in nature. I'm good. I'm good. My
Raining.
yeah, and I appreciate the hair. No, yeah, it is raining again today, but Ollie's been out. You know, it's so weird. So, now by the time this comes out, this will be old news, but we found a magpie the other day on our walk that was injured. I ended up catching the thing, taking to the vet, where in all likelihood got euthanized. But again, not something I really like to see. Something in pain when I know I could potentially help it. And just as a tangent, straight away here within the first minute, that's I genuinely think that's humans' purpose on Earth is to be the kind of caretakers of nature and wilderness and do and help where we can. But yesterday. I was walking Ollie again, and it's the area that he goes up to, which we can't usually get access to because of the rain. Surprise, surprise, it rains here. And yesterday on the end of our walk, I was like, I'm going to go up to that same area. And I cannot express this. Like, I just knew I was going to find something, or something was in me that was just like, you're going to see something up here. There's going to be something. I couldn't put it into words what it was. I was like, okay, what up? Went up, always searching through the trees. I was looking around, kind of scanning where the magpie I found the first day was. And I'm not even joking you, Tom. Within about 4 meters of where I first saw the bird the other day, there was
Yeah.
another dead magpie
Oh my God.
within 4 meters. Like, and I was just like, what? I had to ring Janice immediately. I was like, what is going on? And then today, I found a dead mouse right in the middle of the path.
Same
So
place.
either I have, no, different place, but I was looking around and I was like, that's something dead. I was like, because you know the way your eyes kind of pick up things. It's on the path, completely squish mouse. And I was like, what on earth is happening? So yeah.
I think you should walk somewhere else, mate.
I think so. I think so. Or, I mean, I bumped into the guy who knows everything about birds, and he confirmed my suspicion it might be like a sparrowhawk in that area that's just keeping its nest protected.
Uh,
That was my kind of working theory. And then he told me, he's like, it's most likely that. And I was like, yeah,
yeah.
nature nerd. Yeah.
You're such a wilderness explorer.
I honestly, as a kid, my mum and dad got me these encyclopedias on animals, and I read
Yeah.
those things back to back, like cover to cover. I knew so much about. I always wanted to be basically David Attenborough growing up. That was like
Yeah.
my even in my P7, like when we left P7, we had like what do you want to do when you're older? And mine was like nature documentary and videographer. So
Yeah.
that's my thing. But anyway, I'm looking forward to talking about things that we've grown up out of in terms of our opinions on training, nutrition, and just kind of just general approach to this whole thing. Um,
Yeah.
so, should we kick it off? Which should we start with? What have you previously believed in that you
Um,
now do not?
so there is lots of stuff that I've got wrong over the years. One of the ones that really sort of sticks out to me at the moment is um, the belief that you have to earn the right to use a barbell or use dumbbells, and that you should start with purely body weight as as your means of kind of loading your body. Um,
Mhm.
that was something that I went through a stage of believing. So I had everyone starting with body weight before I'd let them even like touch a barbell or a dumbbell, and it just doesn't make sense in terms of like there's certain movements that or like quite a lot of movements actually that are actually going to be harder with body weight than they are with
Yep.
a barbell or a dumbbell or a machine. And obviously that like there's an element of stability that you get from doing something with body weight because it's more of a closed chain exercise. So for example, if you're doing a dumbbell press, like those dumbbells can move around in space and you have to control that. Whereas if you're doing a press up, your hands are anchored to the floor, so you get a bit more stability from just being on the floor. but for most people, those movements are so much harder in with body weight than actually using like an external weight, that you're actually putting yourself back and preventing yourself from progressing as quickly as what you could had you used those things. And like we've spoken about before, um, the the incremental loading that you can do with those things, like adding a 1 or 2, like 2.5 kilo plate to a barbell, great for like actually progressing. Whereas with body weight, it's so much harder to do that, because you have to,
Yeah,
like, yes, you can manipulate your body in a certain way so you're taking a little bit less load, but it's also it's too hard for a lot of people to actually practice the skill and do the movement properly to load the tissue to make the progress that they want to make. So yeah, that
yeah,
that was one that I wanted to kind of kick off with. Did you ever have that as a thought
yeah.
process?
To a certain degree, maybe not as uniformly across the board, but I can get why you maybe made that mistake at the start, because I can get the kind of like, okay, well, you want to make sure people are confident throughout the movement of a squat, but as you mentioned earlier, I find it quite difficult to do a body weight squat. Just well, not I don't find it difficult, but when there's a barbell on my back, the way the weight is loaded and everything just makes it easier for me to do a squat. Um, so I can get why you kind of went, okay, well, this is like a staging thing, but yeah, with body weight, the most people, again, unless you know quite a bit about biomechanics and levers and all those things that we have studied, as personal trainers, but like most people are just going to go, okay, well, I just have to do more reps. I have to do more push-ups. They wouldn't think, oh, I'll maybe increase my feet to make it a little bit harder, or I'll change the angle or something. So a lot of times it's like, yeah, you're right. There's like a bottleneck of you can't really go anywhere. Like, yeah, you could
Yeah,
do 50 push-ups, but the amount of fatigue you're going to get is going to be huge for the payoff,
yeah,
which is going to be fairly small. When, yeah, you could just pick up some dumbbells or a barbell and be like, oh, okay, this is loading me properly. I can progressively
yeah,
overload this in a multitude of ways. And I think that ties in nicely to one of the mistakes that I made at the start of my career, which was thinking that free weight movements were always across the board the best option. Like that
yeah,
was it was like, oh, a barbell squat. Oh, you shouldn't be doing a leg press. You should be squatting. You shouldn't be doing a lat pull down. You should be doing a pull up. You shouldn't be doing I don't know, bench press. You should be doing bench press instead of machine press. Now, obviously, as I've gotten more mature, and that's a part we're going to talk about, kind of as a summary of this entire episode. It's really what it comes down to. But as I matured, I was like, actually, no exercise is perfect. It all comes down to the individual. And the phrase that I used when I did a practical workshop was machines and exercises are built for everyone, and yet no one in particular. And you've got to find whatever tool essentially that is going to work best for that individual. But yeah, I still believe that like we're always trying to get someone to squat, always trying to get someone to deadlift. And that kind of ties in with another one, which is having squat, bench, deadlift as part of everybody's programming. Did you ever
yeah,
go through that phase where it was like the main three lifts, like you have to have
yeah.
those in there? Um, what is it that like broke that for you? Like, what was it that was there a certain client? Was there a certain like piece of information you found? Like, what was it do you think kind of broke that mindset for you of feeling like you need to do that? There's
That's
waffles.
a really good question. Sorry, Waffles has heard something.
I
Um,
apologize. It's fine. It's good to see her.
yeah, I don't know, because I think when I was going through that phase, I was like, you like, unless you're specifically a bodybuilder, you shouldn't really be using machines, because they provide all of the stability. So all the little stabilizing muscles that like help to support your movements aren't getting worked. So I think it kind of tied into that. But and I yeah, I don't remember one specific point of being like, actually, this doesn't make sense. I think it was just like over time, as I
Yeah.
train more and as I train more clients, I realized that I was holding myself back, and I was holding them back by holding those beliefs, because I was like, oh, this person can't do this movement. Um, what else could I do? And then I was like, actually, using a barbell or a machine or something like that will help me achieve this, because it'll give them the stability that they need,
Hmm.
and it'll allow them to load. at like in a way that allows us to get enough volume in to actually actually progress this. Because I think like, it's really easy when you first get into training specifically, but also as you go along to kind of like fall into these camps of like I'm a kettlebell guy, or I'm a bodyweight calisthenics guy, or I'm a powerlifter, or I'm a
Bodybuilder, yeah,
bodybuilder, or I'm a crossfitter, and then only adopting the methods that group of people use, and then disregarding everything else. And yeah, like I said, I don't remember a specific point that changed, but more so I was just like getting to the point where people probably weren't progressing as I had hoped or I would expect. And I was like, okay, like what can I do here? And just kind of going through that reflection process, I was like, I'm holding myself back, and I'm holding other people back by holding on to this. So then I started exploring, and I think like a big part of my approach to training is about exploring different modalities, different ways of doing things,
yeah,
and not being fixed to like this is the way it has to be. Because at the end of the day, that like if you understand the principles of training, like progressive overload and things like that, then you can use any methods that you want to go and achieve that. But yeah,
yeah,
that I think it's just sort of like say that little bit of kind of maturity as I was going through, just trying to find the easiest ways for people to actually go and do the things that they need to do and make the progress that they wanted to make. Was there a
yeah.
specific point for you that you kind of changed your thought process on it?
It's a bit of an interesting story actually, because I was reflecting on this when I asked you that question. I was like, I wonder if it's been, because I was curious to know how it was for you, and it's kind of similar to me, but there's a slightly kind of different start to it for me. So the guy I did the level 3 personal trainer course with, he's a good dude. His name was John, nice enough guy. He would always talk about this specific guy. I think his name was Paul Check. I think it was Paul Check. I know the name. It's just it's either Paul Check or Paul Quinn. I'm nearly sure it was Paul Check. He swore by this guy, and he was telling us all about how incredible this guy was and how amazing his training principles were, and blah 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 blah. And then I remember seeing on YouTube like a critique of Paul Check. So obviously, the person who's teaching you, you're kind of like, okay, well, this is the person that I'm learning from. It would make sense that I adopt their way of thinking because again, they knew more than me at that time. And I saw a video critiquing Paul Check, and I was like, oh, so wait a minute. So this thing that this guy is telling us is like the holy grail is actually potentially got some flaws in it. I was like, that's probably the case with everybody. Like in
Yeah,
all likelihood, you can marry yourself to a system, like you said, like a training style, or even a mentor, or whatever you would call those guys. But that doesn't mean they're right. And I think when I saw that critique video, I was like, well, actually, he's bringing up some points that I actually kind of agree with. So it kind of very early on in my career taught me to that yes, you may agree with a lot of people's training methodologies or nutrition, blah blah blah, but that doesn't mean they're right on everything. There's
yeah,
people who are right about you might find three things that this guy does that you're like, yeah, I kind of agree with that, but then six things they don't. Just because they have six things you don't agree with necessarily does not invalidate the three things we do. And I think that's where people get very polarized of like it's an all or nothing mindset when it comes to certain things. But the approach I tried to take from the very start of my career was look, I may set my thoughts on one thing, but I'm always ready to be wrong and challenge those thoughts. And I'm always in that mindset of I'm happy to be wrong because if I'm wrong, that means I've learned something. And I think it was always that case of trying to make sure I was constantly kind of having be able to do episodes just like this, where these are things
yeah,
we used to believe in, refresh my information and change my perspective. Again, maturity comes into quite a bit, but yeah, I think that's kind of the thing for me that kind of got that out. And as you said, you know, you get these people who, yeah, let's take a back squat, for example. You're working with someone, you're trying to build them up to get the stability for a back squat, and you just look over at the leg press and you're like,
yeah,
they could just be doing that. You don't have to work on their ankle mobility and their hip mobility and their blah blah. At
yeah,
the end of the day, you want the person that you're taking through this process to enjoy it, to feel like there's a call it kind of success equation of I do this lots, and I try to get better at that thing, and I will see improvements. But if the first step, do this thing, is taking so long, they kind of fall out of the love of it because they're not getting any progress. It's like, yes, you could move your ankle 3 degrees more than you did last week. And you're like, "Ah, okay,
yeah,
great. Like, I think that was it for me. It was like, okay, this may not be the best tool, but it's going to give us what we need in this moment in time. Yes, we can maybe go along later and try squats again, but yeah, I think this idea that machines are bad and free weights are good.
Yeah.
None of the machines have any morality. They're built for a thing. You either use it or you don't. That's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Another element that I think that I've learned about is compound and isolation exercises. So what I mean by that is at the start of my career, I always thought you had to have like a section of your workout dedicated to isolation work. And what I mean by that, in case anyone's unaware, isolation work is simply just using or targeting a single muscle. So a bicep curl is an isolation movement, a tricep extension is an isolation movement, calf raises are an isolation movement. Now, again, we all know that just because I'm trying to target one muscle, you're obviously hitting other muscles. If you're doing a bicep curl, you're also hitting your forearms, your rectors if you're standing up straight, all those things. But I used to think you needed those in your programming. But as I got older, I was like, okay, well, we know that when you're doing a pull up, you're getting significant load through your biceps, enough to be that's all you might have to do for your biceps. And again, whenever as I've matured, I've realized, okay, people don't have the time to dedicate that much time in the gym. And the
Yeah.
time is such a big thing for people to not go to the gym. The idea of doing a 90-minute session is literally fucking happen for them. So I think like reducing the amount of isolation movements I was doing with myself and with my clients as well, and realizing, yes, the compounds are going to they're going to kind of be the catch-all. I think that was kind of one of the biggest things I learned. That isolations are cool, but I don't know if you ever heard this phrase. Isolation movements should only be used by bodybuilders and people who are injured. Did you ever hear that phrase? No.
No.
It was one of those things I remember reading. It was like basically an argument against isolation. It's like, look, the only reason you should be doing that as a normal lifter is
Yeah.
if you're bodybuilding because you're specifically trying to target one area, or you're going through an injury that means you have to train it individually. And I was like, I to a certain degree, I agree with that. But then there's obviously a lot of nuance to it, which I would say, well, what if someone really likes doing bicep curls? I'm
Yeah.
not going to remove it from the programming and just be like, well, no, it's
Yeah.
completely redundant. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's another element. Like, are you the same where you've kind of removed your ego? Because I think my ego was part of my programming for a while,
Yeah.
where I was like, no, there's no point doing that because, you don't need to do this. But what I realized was like, people's enjoyment has
Yeah.
to come pretty high. What about you? Is that something you kind of dealt with early on in your career
Yeah,
of having
definitely.
like your opinions on things and that be so strong?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think a lot, like a lot of these points, like I did feel at the time very strongly about them, and that was the way you had to do it. And another thing that I was thinking of was like I went through a phase of like warm ups and kind of movement prep before lifting needs to be like 15, 20 minutes for people. But obviously, like for most people, if they've only got an hour to train, spending that much time getting ready to train is a significant part of their session. Whereas actually, like say, sort of the leg press versus back squat, the back squat obviously like has a quite significant skill element to it, and
Hmm.
probably some people like won't necessarily to start with be able to like get enough load on the bar
Coordinating.
to
Hmm.
get the stimulus they want, because they're just learning how to do it effectively. And that's not to say like you wouldn't do it at all, but probably for most people, prioritizing the stuff that they can get the most stimulus from doing in the short term is probably a good strategy. And I think a lot of the times, like what I used to think was like, oh, this person's got this mobility issue that's stopping them from doing this. Actually, like for example, ankles or hips or whatever going into a back squat. I think a lot of people like, yeah, people do have mobility issues, but I think a lot of the time it's a strength issue. And actually, by using something that is more stable, like a leg press, people were getting much better at doing their back squats without doing any mobility, because they were stronger through that range of motion, and they felt more confident going through that range of motion because they were stronger there.
Hmm.
So I think obviously that's not to say like warm-ups aren't important. Like getting ready to lift is very important, obviously depending on the person, and like any like old injuries or anything like that, like you obviously have to take that
Age,
into account. But we want
age
to
as
make
well.
sure, Age as well. Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
want to get to the good stuff, get to the stimulating stuff as quickly as possible, particularly for people who are short on time. So if you've only got like
Mhm.
a couple of hours a week to train, you want to make sure your warm up is as condensed as possible, so that you can get to doing
Yep.
the stuff that's actually going to help you move forwards as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
What
I think,
what about? Oh, sorry, mate. You go.
I was going to say before we move on to nutrition, which I think is where you were going. Did I read your mind
Yeah,
there a little
yeah,
bit? Yeah. So
yeah.
before we move on to that quickly, let me see. The last thing I would say, now again, there's probably a plethora of other things we could talk about. We're going to keep this one fairly short for you guys though. But the last thing was I felt like workouts need to be a certain amount of time for them to be efficient,
Yeah,
which is obviously complete bollocks. Like it is not the case at all. Like that's one more thing I'd say I've definitely learned from. So nutrition, moving on to nutrition. What are some of the things that you at the start of your career made mistakes on? We've talked about a little bit about this, you and I,
just
but
just quickly before we do
mhm.
that, would you rather have to wear
Oh,
wet socks every day for a year, or have what's it dust permanently on your fingers?
oh my word, you've just literally triggered both of my hated things, Tom. Okay, so first of all, I have sweaty feet. I always have wet, and my feet are
Oh,
always
so
sweaty and wet, and it's horrible. Although I have come up with a technique where if I remove one sock, my hands and stuff stop sweating entirely.
oh,
My feet stop sweating. And my nephew
that's
actually
weird.
came into me the other day and he's just like, look. And I was like, what am I looking at? He goes, I've got one sock on. I was like, did you see
You're
me do
such an
it?
influencer.
Yeah. Oh, my nephews. And they think, yeah. And he's just
Why not
like,
just wear no? Why not wear no socks rather than one?
right. So this is the issue. Once I have, because my feet sweat so much, I got athlete's foot on my left foot, which then made me always like very self-conscious. But now I fixed it, thankfully, from just not wearing socks, which is probably the best thing. But because I was so self-conscious about how my feet looked, I didn't want to take my socks off. But that was then making
Ah,
it
okay.
worse. So it was
Yeah,
constantly spark. Now the other one, the what's it things, I cannot hack having sticky fingers, having anything on my hands. Like even as a kid in secondary school, do you remember the girls would like flirt with you in primary or secondary school? Not often for me, to be fair, but there's seldom times it would happen, and they'd like draw on your hands. As soon as a girl came near me to draw my hand, I'd be like, "Get off me!" Like, just
yeah,
do not. Right.
yeah.
My sister and brother
Don't
used to come
touch.
home. Yes, my sister and brother used to come home from school, and they would have stuff written all over their hands. And my dad said he would watch me at dinner, like literally rubbing where my brother or sister have something on their hand, as if I was trying to rub it off myself. So you just triggered both massive stresses for me. Like if I lick the what's it dust off, does it then just immediately appear again?
Yeah.
See, I feel like there's some money to be made there. So that's going to influence. That's going to influence my decision. You know what? Oh no, because then I paint too much. I need my hands for too. I'll go with the wet feet. I'm so used to it by now.
Yeah.
You can hide your feet more obviously than your hands. I need my hands for painting Warhammer and other
Well,
things, obviously. But
if
yeah,
you've already got wet feet, then adding a bit more wet to your feet probably doesn't make much
it's,
difference, does it? Whereas, like, if you
no,
have the
it's
cheesy
still
what's it
very
fingers, then
uncomfortable.
you've also got wet feet as well.
Yeah, and then actually another story during one of the TV shows I filmed in Spain back in like 2018. It was on my birthday actually. So on my birthday we started. That was over the period of filming. And on my birthday we were filming this part of the show where we had to jump into a marina first thing in the morning and swim across this marina.
Yeah.
That meant my feet were wet all all day, like shooting all day, wet
Yeah.
feet. And then the next day it was raining, so we then woke up first thing, feet soaked.
Yeah.
So I literally spent 48 hours in just soaking shoes. And again, I got like a trench foot type of situation with my feet. It was horrible,
Uh,
horrible. Like my skin was just like sloughing off. So yeah, you triggered me there.
uh,
Thanks, Tom.
so
Thanks,
good
Tom.
job you win. Good job you win in World War One.
Oh, dude, I was thinking that that's all I thought of. Like those men. Oh, I
Oh,
imagine if they took their shoe off, everything would just come with it.
yeah,
Well,
I don't want to
anyway,
imagine it. Yeah.
no, it's gross, and you don't want to. Oh, dude, I'll tell you something off air after, but it's too gross for a podcast. It's too
I
gross
don't
for
know
a
if I want to.
podcast.
I
I'll
don't know
tell
if I
you
want to
anyway.
hear it.
Okay, so nutrition. When it comes to nutrition, I like that. That was a good one. Um, one of the things that I really discovered about nutrition was how flexible we truly can be when it comes to achieving a body composition that we might be aiming for, whether it's getting bigger or leaner or whatever it is. Like obviously during bodybuilding, during all the bodybuilding shows I did, I was very, very restrictive in how I was eating. Like I was trying to get exactly 2,300 calories, exactly 100 and 200 grams of protein. And obviously, as I got older, I'm like, it's the law of average that really matters. So I was putting myself through so much unnecessary stress and what I call an unnecessary food prison, sorry, when it came to my nutrition. You know, having that flexibility and realizing that one day, one meal really doesn't make a big difference in the overall picture. And then the other element of it was that there's certain groups of foods that you just couldn't have. Like, even though I was in a deficit, I would still not have cereal or any sweets or anything like that because I was, or crisps, anything at all, because I assumed that as soon as I ate that, I would gain body fat. Again, that was
Yeah.
just my lack of understanding when it came to how important calories are in total. But that was something I really learned is like a lot of people are unnecessarily restrictive when it comes to food when they don't really need to be. Again, certain
Yeah.
situations is required, but
Yeah. Yeah.
for the most part, as a lifestyle, we don't need to be super restrictive when it comes to nutrition.
Yeah, definitely. I genuinely think like the thing that stops most people from making progress is not something happening that throws them like that is off their plan. It's that then causing them to spiral and that turning into
Mhm.
the rest of that day or next couple of days or the next week. And if that sort of resonates with you, if you can find a way to shorten that gap between something happening that like would throw you off and just kind of carrying on normally, you will make far better progress overall and probably be far happier as well because you won't be beating
Yeah,
yourself up so much. Because at the end of the day, there is always going to be stuff that isn't on your plan. And yes, you can like over time sort of set up your environment better and build sort of a better kind of bank of habits that make it easier to kind of make the choice that you want to make. But yeah, honestly, that sort of spiral that happens after something or like is such a big thing for a lot of people that stops them from actually getting anywhere with their training and nutrition and the whole sort of
yep.
I've done this, I'll start again on Monday sort of thing. Yeah,
Mountains out of
that side of
molehills.
things is massive.
Yeah,
And yeah, I completely agree with that. Like kind of tying into that, I I went through a phase of thinking that like carbs were the reason sort of a lot of people were getting fat because of like the like insulin taking carbs and storing it in body fat cells and like that sort of things. And yeah, I went through a phase of like under fueling for quite a long time because I was like I wasn't thinking about like the overall calories. And actually I was I was still probably overeating to a certain extent, but I was so focused on carbs being the problem that
yeah,
yeah, that I a didn't fuel very well, didn't feel great when I was training, but also didn't actually make the progress that I wanted to make. So I was focusing on the wrong thing.
yeah. Carb loading is a big one. I remember it's funny because you can actually look back at the fitness industry, and we've been in it long enough that we can actually like tell like little periods of time. But there was a period of time where carb loading, backloading, all these things that again I think it kind of preys on, hey, this is so different, it might work. I think that's a
Yeah.
lot of the tricks that people fall for, just as a general thing of like, oh, this is so weird, it might work. I remember making a joke during a webinar or a nutrition seminar around once, saying like, I guarantee if I put out a video saying the secret to being lean is eating a chipolata, tiny little sausage, at exactly 12:15 every day, that was
Yeah.
the key to being lean. And I guarantee you, and if I put that out, somebody would go, that's just weird enough, it might work.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of this misinformation and these mistakes that we make come from of like, hey, realistically, it's rarely the thing you're not doing is the reason you're not where you want to be. It's all the little things you're currently doing that you could just shape up a little bit and just,
Yeah.
make as good as you can, as good as you can make them. That's ultimately what it's going to be. It's never, you know, I, say I'm actually going to do a reel about this, but the this is the one exercise I did, and suddenly my X blew up, and you're like, that's a
Yeah,
lie. That's a bit silly, isn't it? That's a bit silly to say that this one exercise made your arms double in size, or your back, or your glutes, or whatever it is. It's
yeah,
not. It's just doing the same things over and over again. It's just, unfortunately, humans just have this idea that something shiny and new is going to be
yeah.
the answer. And it's not.
Also,
That's
also
really
it
it.
it generates views and interest on social media, and it like
Which, yeah,
gets people watching, which is more of a draw for most people than actually delivering good information, unfortunately.
yeah. And again, like you got to think, like, what is Instagram for? Realistically, it's for people to pass boredom. So people would rather be entertained than educated.
Yeah,
And that's the unfortunate position we're in as coaches, where we're trying to educate people who maybe you're not there for that. So you've got to almost trick them into thinking, hey, this is entertaining, but we're going to sneak in some information there. And that makes the whole content process for people who, like you and I, understand that. It makes it very difficult. But yeah, I think ultimately, I think the whole summary of this topic and why we want to talk about it is just simply because a large degree of this is just us maturing as people. Like we
yeah,
realize, oh, I think as you get older, your mind expands and you start getting a little bit more perspective on things and how other people's lives are going and all the stresses and difficulties. And ultimately, for me, as a coach, my goal, my primary goal, is to make sure that the people I work with don't quit, because that's the ultimate goal. Like you just, as
yeah,
long as you don't quit, you're in the game. Whatever process we need to go through, no matter how unoptimal it is,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. As long as someone can engage with it. And I think that's ultimately where a lot of my decisions come from now, which is like, this doesn't matter. Grand scheme of things doesn't matter. As long as you're engaging in this process, and you're always going to engage in this process, and that's all that matters to me as a coach. So a lot of this is
yeah,
just, yeah, life experience and maturity.
yeah, 100%. And I think just like realizing that, like, I was probably fixed to a lot of like very rigid rules in terms of training and nutrition, and actually like there's so much flexibility to be had, no matter like how much time you can put towards your training or your nutrition or that sort of thing, if you understand like the overarching principles and go and
Yes.
do those things consistently.
Yep.
But like you say, yeah, I think a big part of it is just maturing and kind of understanding that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Lovely. Well, you've already got the would you rather. You took it for, I had one planned up and ready, but you beat me to it. So another good one. If you've gotten all the way to the end of the episode, we would really appreciate if you share this with people. If you want to leave a rating on it, wherever you're listening to it. And if you want, you can share it on social media, tag us, and let us know if there's any questions or topics you would like us to cover in the future. We'd really appreciate it. And Tom, do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye. Have a lovely day.
Goodbye. Have a lovely
Bye
day.
bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.